Welcome to Sage at Kapiolani Community College. This quick video will run you through the essentials of sales order. For sales order, it's a very interesting module because you can see it's fully integrated with almost every single module in Sage. So it basically feeds information to those other modules. For example, if you prepare a sales order, then inventory will get allocated to fulfill the sales order. So your inventory item will be flagged as a certain number set essentially set aside for fulfilling that sales order. When you ship your sales, accounts receivable, inventory management, general ledger will all get updated. If we were running returns merchandise authorization, which we're not, this guy here, um, it would impact accounts receivable, inventory management, GL. And then when you have a back order where you're unable to fulfill the current sales order, it'll help you generate a purchase order. And when you actually fulfill the back order and receive the merchandise and then actually ship it, all of these guys over here are influenced by it. So you should, in your mind, try and think like when the sale is shipped, what accounts would actually be involved here? What would be getting debited? What would be getting credited? And similarly, in a case of a return, what would be getting debited and credited? And when we actually receive item through a purchase order that gets generated, think about what that impacts also in the general ledger. So sales order really pretty much takes care of a lot of the customer-facing transactions in distribution, meaning typically our model is like a company that sells to other companies. So business to business transactions. So inventory management is critical to this. Sales order allocates items in inventory management, also impacts purchase order when need be, accounts receivable. The purchase order impact could end up impacting accounts payable. And then if we were running return merchandise authorization, that would also have some impact too. Now, if we scan through this flowchart here that I ripped off from the web, you'll see that you can do things like tell your customer what you expect their item to cost them. So enter a quote for them, and you can convert that quote into an actual sales order, which is basically your point of entry into your accounting system. Print the quote and or the sales order entry. Once it becomes a sales order though, you're going to want to like tell the people who handle inventory what it is they need to pull out in order to ship. And at that point, the inventory quantity gets allocated. You enter your shipping information about that particular order and print something called a packing ticket. So picking ticket to pick the items out, packing ticket to say what's actually going to end up in the shipment because some items might not be available. And then you create and print your invoices from here, which are going to port over to the sales journal in AR, and accounts receivable will get updated, and your inventory will actually get updated because of your shipping. And then you're going to update your daily transaction register and update to general ledger also. So several things here that are kind of big deal. A lot of students end up like being perplexed at the tail end of the chapter because they're trying to like find a button that says something and they can't find it, and that's because I think they were a little bit lax in setting up at the beginning of the chapter. This company is SB1 all the way through from setup through processing, so there's lots of options that are selected at the beginning of the chapter. You want to go through carefully and do every single setup activity that's listed, and otherwise things won't be there when you need them. Also, we don't have a subscription for return merchandise authorization, so sometimes a checkbox like returns allowed, for example, that shows up on page 31 won't be there because we just don't have it. Also, the standard item codes that you have that were present in AP and AR, like slash for comment, slash for miscellaneous item, slash C, slash M. And if you just do slash and hit the F2, slash plus F2, then you'll get a list of your miscellaneous codes. So that's nothing new. That's the same old thing pretty much. So what are the default values for your sales order entry? You want to make sure that you have the print order radio button checked. Otherwise, you won't be able to print your orders when it's time. And a couple items here that could trip you up. If your order status is hold, then you won't be able to ship it. And once you've printed the sales order, then the status is going to change to open. So those are just two order status things to take note of. Sales kits. Sales kits, you develop them in inventory management. Same kind of deal from here, except now you're getting to the point where you're going to not only um, use the sales kit, you're going to be actually shipping it too. So you need taking it all the way from the customer wanting it to you getting it out the door. Question is, if I don't have any of this bikes built with all this stuff in it, uh, then what am I going to do? Should I take the item out of stock as a negative, like run it into the negative, or should I just take all the component pieces out so that I don't, have to do a negative tier adjustment later on? And so that's just an option that gets selected. Quick print. Quick print is somewhat like the checks back in the accounts payable chapter, so it's kind of tricky. It'll print the current order, and when it does that, it unchecks the print order radio button in your sales order, I'm pretty sure. So time to print orders again. If you already printed that one, it's not going to want to print again unless you go back in and check the print order radio button. So that, by the way, is one of your selections early on in setup, is to print your sales orders. Master orders are, uh, for example, a customer may have an order where they think that over the next 6 months they're going to order 1,000 units of some product, and they're going to probably do it in, like, I don't know, monthly increments of like 160 items per month or something like that. So, and there might be more, maybe less. So they'll enter the order for like 1,000. So that sort of obligates us to provide that for them. And then when they actually want shipments made to them, then you will go ahead and use that master order to like take from. And so it'll be keeping track of how many are still left on their master purchase order. That's their purchase order. We our sales order. And just like we were doing to generate checks in previous chapters, we did um, invoice payment selection register. Same kind of thing here, auto generate order selection, and you can go ahead and clear it. Similar to allocations too. Um, you can clear the button to hit the clear button to select, to clear the selections, and then proceed on with trying to generate it again after you made some modifications. And also, you're going to manually select master order number and master repeating order number field to make sure that you can change, and make sure you change the number of units you got on your lines tab. If you have a quote that you want to convert into sales order, it's super easy. You just pull the quote up by typing in its order number, and then you do the drop down and change the order type to standard, and that'll turn it into a sales order. Okay, so setup activities. If you haven't gone through and disabled the local printer, you want to make sure you do that before you log in so you don't have issues with printing. And when you're doing miscellaneous item maintenance, when you're actually using it, remember the slash I mentioned up earlier in the notes. You're also going to set up shipping rates, I guess, depending on, this is sort of pre-internet communicate. It's not, it's a earlier version of the software where we didn't have like necessarily web-based access to shippers and links to them and apps to add in and things like that. So you essentially type in your own shipping rates based on whatever the shipper's actual rates are. So if you're doing this in Excel, for example, it'd be like a lookup table where it hits the next level and it increments to the next cost after that. And also, please remember, we are not, I repeat, not using Sage payment solutions. So the same workaround that we had to do previously with the credit cards, not saving the credit card, applies here in this module. So you're just going to uncheck the save button to make sure it doesn't try and like save it and then go ahead and pull up a module that we don't actually have. So uncheck save. Alrighty. Also, a specific situation here that seemed to cause a lot of problems I want to like flag for you. When you're entering sales order for 01 ARC and it asks you, do you want to ship from stock? be sure to answer no, otherwise you won't end up with what you're looking for. Master order. The master order is an order that, for example, that a customer will make with us, and uh, it's going to decrement from like the total number that they've ordered down to zero by the time they've ordered everything they want over time. Whatever the earliest stop criteria is the one that's going to control. So it might stop before you are aware of it, unless you haven't yet, gone over the stop criteria. Standard order, by the way, is just a regular order, but when you convert from either repeating or master order to standard order, or apply rather, from repeating or master to standard order, then you end up with a regular sales order. Okay, I hope this helps. Thanks. Bye now.